The first thing I remembered was the sound, not the gunshot itself. The refrigerator compressor behind me made a low mechanical hum, and somewhere near the front registers a child had started crying because his mother had dropped a carton of eggs. Then somebody screamed. I knew the gunshot would come 9 seconds later. I knew because I had already lived through it once. My hand was wrapped around a bottle of sparkling water when the world snapped into place around me. Rossi's Market, Friday night, 7:42 p.m. The fluorescent light above aisle 6 flickered exactly twice. My boyfriend, Officer Evan Cross, stood 12 feet away with his off-duty pistol raised in both hands. A man named Derek Vaughn had his left arm around Maya Bennett's neck. The barrel of Derek's revolver rested somewhere near her jaw, and I was 30 years old again. For one impossible second, I forgot how to breathe. I had died at 37. A drunk driver had gone through a red light while I was driving home from a 12-hour shift. There had been rain on the windshield, the glare of headlights, then pressure in my chest. After that, nothing except apparently this. Mara, Evan said sharply, get down. I knew his next movements. I knew Maya would twist. I knew Derek would jerk his gun away from her temple because he was trying to look toward the back exit. I knew Evan would interpret that movement as the beginning of an execution. I knew he would step left. I knew the bullet would enter high near Maya's shoulder instead of hitting Derek, and I knew that 6 hours later in a hospital stairwell, Evan would hold both my hands and ask me to destroy my life for him. 9 seconds, maybe less now. Evan, wait. His eyes never left Derek. Get down. Your line is bad. Mara. Maya made a sound between a sob and a gasp. Derek shouted, back up. The front doors burst open. Someone outside yelled, police. Derek flinched. Maya moved. Evan moved too. I saw the future and the present overlap so perfectly that for a fraction of a second I thought I might stop it simply because I remembered it. Evan, no. He fired. The sound flattened the room. Maya folded. Derek stared down as if he did not understand what had happened. Then 2 uniformed officers entered from the front and another voice ordered him to drop the weapon. This time he did. The revolver hit the tile. I was already moving. Someone grabbed for me. I'm a nurse. I hardly recognized my own voice. Mara? I dropped beside Maya. Blood spread quickly through the pale fabric of her blouse near the top of her chest and shoulder. She was conscious. That mattered. In my first life, I had remembered mostly the blood. This time I remembered the woman inside it. Maya. Her eyes snapped toward me. How do you know my name? Because I had attended hearings about you, because I had watched your brother speak to reporters, because I had read every page of the lawsuit your family filed against the city and against me, because 7 years from now, I would still remember the photograph of you learning to hold a coffee mug with your left hand. I heard him say it. I lied. I pressed my hands where they needed to go. Stay with me. My arm. I know. I can't feel my fingers. I know. Behind us, Evan was saying something to the responding officers. I did not listen. I remembered listening the first time. I remembered turning my attention away from Maya because I had been terrified for him. Had he followed policy? Would he be arrested? Would he lose his badge? Would everyone blame him? I had spent the first 10 minutes after another woman was shot worrying about what the bullet might do to my boyfriend's career. That memory made me sick now. Maya, look at me. She did. You're going to keep breathing. Is that supposed to be a medical order? Her voice shook. Despite everything, I nearly laughed. Yes. Bossy. Very. Paramedics came through the doors. I moved when they told me to move. Someone guided me toward the end of the aisle. My knees began trembling. Only after I was no longer touching her. Evan stood near a refrigerated case with an officer beside him. His gun had been taken as evidence. His face looked gray. He saw me. For a moment, I saw the man I had loved for 6 years. The man who made terrible coffee and always remembered to warm my side of the bed when I worked late. The man who once drove 3 hours because my mother's basement flooded and I called him crying. The man who would eventually sit across from me in our kitchen and say, Claire understands what this job does to people. You never did. He started toward me. An investigator stopped him. Not yet. Witness separation, of course. I had forgotten that part. Or perhaps I had wanted to forget it. I looked through the store's back window. A white refrigerated delivery truck sat at the loading curb. Bluebird Fresh Foods. There was a small black camera mounted above the rear door. My stomach dropped. In the first life, investigators learned about that truck 5 days later. The company's system automatically overrode exterior footage after 72 hours unless an incident was flagged. By then it was gone. My lawyer had told me that months afterward, if we'd had that angle, Mara, everything might have been different. I stared at the little black camera. Everything was different already. But I would make sure of it. At the hospital, I gave my name and contact information to 3 different people. Maya went into surgery. Evan was taken elsewhere for the standard post-shooting process, I sat alone near the trauma waiting room with dried blood on my jeans at 10:16 p.m. A man walked through the double door so quickly that the receptionist had to stand to get his attention. He was tall, dark-haired, wearing an office shirt with the sleeves rolled above his forearms. Maya Bennett. The receptionist asked who he was. Her brother, Julian Bennett. I looked up. I recognized him, not because I had met him in my first life, I never had, but I had seen him in court. He had sat behind Maya every day during the civil trial. He had stared at me once while my attorney explained that I had interfered with a trained police officer during an active threat. I had looked away. Now he was younger than I remembered, 35, maybe more exhausted, less hard. The receptionist pointed him toward a surgeon. He did not notice me, not yet. Evan arrived after midnight with a police association attorney. He was no longer in the clothes he had been wearing. Someone had given him a gray sweatshirt. He looked at me from across the hall. Then he asked his attorney something. The attorney glanced at me. I knew what was coming at 1:03 am. Evan found me beside the stairwell vending machines. Mara? I turned. For a few seconds neither of us spoke. Then he stepped toward me. Are you okay? The question almost broke me because once, I had loved him enough that hearing concern in his voice after the worst night of our lives felt like proof that everything between us mattered. I'm not hurt. He closed his eyes. Thank God. I waited. He rubbed both hands over his face. They're going to ask you exactly where you were. I know. Mara, listen to me. There it was. My entire first life sat between those 4 words and whatever came next. Everything happened fast. Yes. You were close to me. I said nothing. You reached for me. No. He stopped. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. What? I didn't reach for you. His face changed, not much, but I knew him. I knew the tiny tightening around his mouth, the calculation behind his eyes. Mara, you were scared. I was. You grabbed my arm. No. He looked toward the stairwell door, then back at me. I felt contact. You didn't. You don't know what I felt. I know what I did. His breathing grew shallow. If you say you were moving toward me, I wasn't. Mara? No. It was the simplest word I had ever spoken. It was also the one I had spent 7 years wishing I could go back and say. He stared at me. You understand what they're going to do to me? I thought of Maya's blood beneath my fingernails. Yes. No, you don't. I understand that I'm going to tell them what happened. His jaw tightened. We're supposed to be on the same side. I almost answered the way I once had. We are. Instead I said, the truth doesn't have sides. Someone stood beyond the partly open stairwell door. Julian Bennett. I had no idea how long he had been there. He looked from me to Evan. Evan saw him too. Something like shame passed over his face. Then anger covered it. He stepped back. Fine. He said it quietly, too quietly. Tell them whatever you think you saw. He walked away. Julian remained by the door. Neither of us spoke until Evan disappeared around the corner. Then Julian looked at the blood on my jeans. My sister's. Yes. You were with her. Until the paramedics took over. His throat moved. Is she alive because of you? No. I meant it. She's alive because the bullet missed what it could have hit and because the trauma team got her upstairs fast. He studied me. You're his girlfriend. Yes. Still. That hurt more than I expected. I don't know. Julian nodded once. Then he said something I carried with me for the rest of my second life. If you saw what happened, don't make it easier for my family. I looked at him. He continued. Don't make it easier for him either. His voice was rough with exhaustion. Just make it true. Then he went back to wait for his sister, and for the first time in 7 years, I realized that truth could hurt everyone in the room and still be the kindest thing left. Detective Lynn Navarro interviewed me at 8:40 the next morning. She was not from Evans' precinct. The critical incident team used investigators from outside the involved officer's immediate chain of command, and Navarro behaved like a woman who had spent half her career listening to people confuse certainty with memory. She put a recorder on the table. I had a lawyer beside me. That was different too. In my first life I had refused one. Evan had said getting a lawyer would make us look guilty. This time I called Rebecca Shaw, an attorney who had once represented a nurse at my hospital during a licensing investigation. Rebecca did not ask me whether hiring her would make me look guilty. She asked whether I wanted water. Navarro began with ordinary questions. Where had I been standing? Why were Evan and I in the store? What had I heard Derek say? When had I first seen the weapon? Had Evan identified himself as a police officer? Had I touched Evan before the shot? No. Navarro did not react. Did you touch him after the shot? No. Did you move toward him? No. Did you see anyone else make physical contact with him? No. Rebecca remained silent. Navarro looked at me. What do you know and what are you assuming? I remembered that question. She had asked it during my first life too back then. I told her I knew Evan had fired because I frightened him. That had not been knowledge. It had been devotion dressed as fact. I know where I was standing, I said. I know where he was standing. No, I did not touch him. And what are you assuming? That he fired because he believed Derek was about to shoot Maya. Navarro nodded. Better. Then I told her about the truck. Her pen stopped. What truck? Bluebird Fresh Foods, white refrigerated vehicle at the rear loading curb. You saw a camera? Yes. You're sure it was a camera? Yes. What direction? Toward the rear entrance and loading area. It might have caught Evan's position through the back glass. Navarro wrote quickly. How do you know the company? I've seen them deliver there before. That part was true. How do you know the footage might be retained? I don't. That was technically true in this life. I just know commercial vehicle systems overwrite footage. If there's any chance it caught something, someone should preserve it quickly. Navarro gave me a long look. You work in digital evidence. I'm an ICU nurse. Rebecca shifted beside me, perhaps wondering the same thing Navarro was. I smiled without humor. I'm very motivated. Navarro made the call before I left the building at 11:17. My phone vibrated. Evan. I stared at his name. Rebecca noticed. Don't delete anything. I won't. Don't answer unless you want to. I read the message. We need to talk before this gets out of control. Then another. They asked whether you made contact with me. A third. Mara, please remember how fast everything happened. I photographed the screen even though I knew the messages were already stored. Rebecca held out her hand. May I? I passed her the phone. Her expression sharpened. He shouldn't be discussing testimony with you. He's scared. That can be true. She returned my phone. It can also be irrelevant. Those words stayed with me. People liked clean categories because they made moral decisions easier. A frightened person could still manipulate you. A loving person could still betray you. A person who had made one terrible decision could make another because facing the first was unbearable. At the hospital. That afternoon Maya was awake. I did not go into her room. I sat across the hall because part of me needed proof she had survived. Julian came out carrying 2 coffees. He saw me and hesitated. You're still here. I work upstairs. That was only half the reason. He handed me 1 coffee. I bought this before remembering I already had one. I took it. Thank you. He sat 2 chairs away, not beside me. How is she? Angry. Good. That surprised a laugh out of him. It disappeared quickly. Surgeon says. The bullet missed the major artery. There's nerve damage. They won't know how much function comes back. I'm sorry. He stared at the lid of his cup. She teaches ceramics. I swallowed. I know. His head turned. I corrected myself. She told the paramedic she was an art teacher. I had learned in the first life that constantly remembering information before I should know it was dangerous. Julian did not seem to notice. She throws clay 6 days a week? His mouth tightened. Apparently that matters. Less than being alive. Everyone keeps telling me that like I'm stupid. They're trying to give you something to hold. I know. Silence settled between us. He looked toward Maya's room. Did you give your statement? Yes. And I told them I didn't touch Evan. His eyes closed briefly. It was not relief exactly, maybe confirmation. Thank you. Don't thank me. Why? Because telling the truth isn't something your family should owe me gratitude for. His gaze returned to me. For the first time it was not hostile. Just tired. My standards are low today. I almost smiled. My phone vibrated again. Evan, Claire says the department is already treating me like I fired recklessly. Claire. Even after 7 years, seeing her name could make my body remember before my mind did. A navy blue dress on a restaurant chair, Evan's phone face down, a hotel receipt, then the truth arriving in fragments because whole truths are sometimes too large to survive all at once. Julian noticed my expression. Bad news. Old news. He frowned. I put the phone away. 2 hours later Rebecca called. The investigators contacted Bluebird. I stood in an empty supply room, and the truck footage hadn't overwritten yet. My knees weakened. They have it. They've issued the preservation request. The company is cooperating. Nobody knows what it shows yet. I leaned against the wall. In my first life, the missing footage had become a ghost. Everyone imagined what it might have shown. Evan's lawyers said it might have supported him. Maya's lawyer said it might have destroyed him. My attorney said it might have saved me. Now it existed, a real thing. Rebecca was still speaking. Mara, I'm here. There's something else. What? Evan filed his preliminary incident account. I already knew my fingers went cold anyway. Rebecca paused. He says you moved into him immediately before the shot. For 7 years, I had believed my first lie began when I agreed to repeat Evan's story. I had been wrong. The first lie had begun the moment he realized I loved him enough to consider it. This time, before he even knew what I would say, he had already written me into his escape. I looked through the supply room window at the nurses moving through the hall, ordinary people, ordinary work, a world that had once disappeared while I spent years defending a man who had decided my future was negotiable. When do they want me again? I asked. Rebecca's voice softened. Soon. Good. I looked at Evan's message one more time. Then I typed 5 words. Do not contact me again. I blocked his number, and that was how my 6-year relationship ended. Not with screaming, not with accusations, with a preservation order, a false report, and 5 words I should have learned much earlier. Moving out of Evan's apartment took 43 minutes. Tessa Reed came with cardboard boxes, a roll of industrial tape, and the expression she usually reserved for residents who ignored obvious sepsis. You own too many sweaters, she said. I live in California. That makes this worse. I folded another sweater. She watched me for several seconds, then she asked, do you want me to call him an asshole? No. Good, I'm 52, I should have more sophisticated coping mechanisms. I laughed despite myself. That was why I had called Tessa instead of my mother. My mother loved me, but she would have turned this into a referendum on every warning she had ever given me about dating police officers. Tessa preferred logistics, boxes, keys, food, sleep, the things that kept a person alive while emotions tried to make survival seem optional. Evan was not home. His attorney had probably told him to stay away. I packed my clothes, nursing books, grandmother's serving bowl, and the ugly ceramic bird Evan had won for me at a county fair. I stood holding the bird. Tessa looked over. Keep or trash? I remembered Evan carrying it through the parking lot like a trophy. Keep, Mara. It's proof I can provide. He had laughed when he said it. We had been 26. Trash. Tessa took it without ceremony. On the kitchen counter I left my key, nothing else, no note, no final explanation. In my first life, I had written him letters even after he left me, pages explaining why I had done what I did, pages asking whether he remembered, pages begging him to understand that I had destroyed something in myself because I believed we would use the sacrifice to build a future. I never sent most of them. I was glad. Some humiliations deserved to die unread. 3 days after the shooting, Julian called. I almost did not answer. Hello? Mara? Yes. This is Julian Bennett. I know. A pause. Right, hospital paperwork. No, 7 years of memory, but he did not need that. Truth. How is Maya? Mean. Still good. She asked for you. That surprised me. Why? She wants to know exactly what happened after she got hit. My chest tightened. Is that a good idea? Probably not. Then why are you asking me? Because she threatened to get out of bed and find you herself. I looked at the clock. I can come after my shift. Maya looked smaller in the hospital bed than she had in my memories. Her right arm rested in a sling. There were shadows beneath her eyes. She studied me when I entered. You're the nurse? Yes. The one dating the cop? Not anymore. Her eyebrows rose. That fast? Yes. Julian sat near the window. He did not interfere. Maya adjusted herself carefully. Did he shoot me? Yes. Did you knock into him? No. Her mouth flattened. He says you did. I know. Who's lying? He is. Julian shifted. Maya looked at him. Don't. I didn't say anything. You were about to. I was breathing. You breathed judgmentally? Despite the situation, I liked her immediately. Maybe I had in the first life too. From a distance, Maya looked back at me. Why would he lie? There was no answer that did not sound cruel, so I gave her the least dramatic one. Because he's afraid. She looked down at her injured arm. So am I? Yes. I didn't lie. No. The room went quiet. That was the moral center of the entire story, spoken by a woman who had every right not to care why Evan had panicked. Maya had been afraid too. She had simply been the one who got shot. When I left, Julian followed me into the hall. You didn't have to come, she asked. She also asked the surgeon if he could replace her arm with something from a robot. That sounds reasonable. He smiled. It changed his face more than I expected. Then the smile faded. I owe you an apology. For what? At the hospital the first night. You were scared. He shook his head. That explains it. His eyes met mine. It doesn't make it fair. I had not expected the distinction. Evan had spent years teaching me explanations as substitutes for accountability. Julian used one sentence to separate them. I understood why you hated me, I said. I didn't hate you. You looked like you did. I didn't know you. Sometimes that helps. His mouth twitched, then he became serious again. I thought you would protect him. So did he. And you didn't? No. Why? Because I already knew what it cost. Because I remembered standing in front of the California Board of Registered Nursing while a lawyer asked why a nurse trusted with critically ill patients had admitted interfering with a police action and later provided false sworn testimony. Because I remembered being called a cop's girlfriend who got an innocent woman shot. Because I remembered Maya's civil attorney placing a diagram on a screen and asking me to point to where my hand had touched Evan's arm. Because I remembered lying again. I could not tell Julian any of that. I realized loving someone doesn't give me the right to rewrite what happened. He was silent for a moment. That sounds like something people usually learn before 30. It took me longer. Me too. What did you learn? His expression closed slightly. That protecting someone and controlling everything around them are not the same thing. He glanced toward Maya's room. Our parents died when she was 19. I'm sorry. I became unbearable for about 3 years. Only 3. He stared at me, then laughed. It was the first sound in days that did not feel connected to tragedy. My phone rang, unknown number. I answered because Rebecca had warned investigators might call from different lines. Mara? Evan, my body reacted before my mind. Do not call me. I borrowed a phone. That doesn't make this better. Please. Julian stepped away, giving me privacy. I almost loved him for that before I had any right to love him at all. Evan's voice lowered. They got footage. I know. How? The truck. Silence. Then you knew about that. Yes. You told them. Yes, he exhaled. Mara, what are you doing? For 1 second I was back in our kitchen 7 years later. What happened to you? That was what Evan had asked after I finally stopped forgiving him, as if my boundaries were a mysterious illness. I'm telling the truth. You think this is some moral test? No. You think I wanted Maya to get hurt? No. You think I'm a monster? No. He stopped. My answer had disarmed him more effectively than anger. I think you made a terrible decision, I said. And then you made another one when you put my name in your report. His voice cracked. I was trying to remember what happened. You remembered something that didn't happen. You were close. I was 6 feet away. You don't know that. The camera probably does. He swore softly, then he said, my whole career is on the line. There was the sentence, not Maya, not me, his career. I closed my eyes. I know. You said you wanted to marry me. I did. So how can you do this? The question made something inside me finally settle, not break, settle like sediment sinking through water until everything became clear. If we got married, I said, would you want me to lie for you every time the truth cost too much? That's not what I'm asking. It's exactly what you're asking. He breathed into the phone. Mara, I loved you. Past tense came naturally. His silence lasted long enough that I knew he heard it too. Then I ended the call. Julian stood near the elevator. He did not ask what Evan said. He only held the elevator door when it opened. Inside, I leaned against the metal wall. You okay? He asked. No. He nodded. That was all. No promise that I would be. No speech about strength, just room for the truth. The elevator descended. For the first time since returning to this life, I began to understand that starting over did not mean avoiding pain. It meant choosing which pain belonged to me. The video arrived 11 days after the shooting. I did not see it immediately. Rebecca did, investigators did, Evan and his attorney did, the city attorney's office did. I learned what it showed during my second interview with Detective Navarro. She placed a still photograph on the table. Rossi's Market loading entrance. The image was grainy but clear enough. Evan stood near the back of aisle 6. Derek held Maya several feet away, and I stood behind Evan, not touching him, not reaching for him, not close enough to alter the direction of his arm. Navarro tapped the image. Is this where you remember standing? Yes. Another photograph. Half a second later, Maya twisted left. Derek's weapon shifted. Evan stepped. Then the frame captured the muzzle flash. Navarro looked at me. You never made contact, no? What do you know? That I didn't touch him. What are you assuming? That the footage means he'll be charged. Good. I frowned. Good. You separated the two. She collected the photographs. This video resolves your position. It does not resolve everything about the use of force. I understood. Derek still had a gun. Maya was still in danger. A prosecutor would eventually have to consider what Evan reasonably perceived in a fraction of a second. Life did not become simple because a camera existed. But his report. Navarro's expression remained neutral. That is a different question. I left the interview feeling strangely Empty. I had imagined this evidence for 7 years. Some part of me expected vindication to feel warm. It did not. It felt like being handed back a coat after spending winter outside. Useful, necessary. Late at work, people knew. Nobody said much directly. Hospitals were small cities with excellent gossip networks. A respiratory therapist named Cody gave me an awkward thumbs up in the medication room. A resident avoided eye contact. 2 nurses from another unit stopped talking when I entered the cafeteria. Tessa set a yogurt beside my elbow. Eat. I'm not hungry. I didn't ask. I opened it. You're very controlling. I'm professionally qualified. She sat across from me. Any word on the cop? Administrative leave. That permanent? No? Good. I looked at her. Why good? Because if they're going to fire somebody, I'd rather they investigate first. That surprised me. Tessa shrugged. You don't need me to hate him for you. I don't hate him. I know. Sometimes I wish I did. That sounds exhausting too. Maya transferred to inpatient rehabilitation 2 weeks later. Her right hand barely responded. She could move 2 fingers slightly. She celebrated those 2 fingers like they had personally returned from war. Julian sent me a photo. Maya's hand rested on a therapy table. Her middle finger was raised. The caption read, "Medical progress." I laughed aloud in the nurse's station. Tessa looked over. Boy? Patient's brother. Boy? He hates me. Not if he's sending you rude hand gestures. It was Maya's gateway behavior. I ignored her. Julian and I had started texting for practical reasons. How long does post-surgical nerve pain usually stay this bad? Should Maya ask about occupational therapy earlier? Is it normal that she sleeps 12 hours after rehab? I answered when I could. Then practical questions became less practical. What's the worst hospital coffee? Do nurses really judge people who come to the ER with objects stuck in embarrassing places? Do engineers really own 17 identical blue shirts? He claimed 12. I accused him of lying. He sent a photograph of his closet. 11 blue shirts, 1 gray. I stand corrected. I wrote apology accepted. I stared at the message longer than necessary. Then shame arrived, not because I had done anything wrong, because some part of me still behaved as though emotional movement away from Evan were betrayal. I had died knowing he was with Claire. I had returned to a time before that future technically happened. My heart did not understand technicalities. One afternoon, Julian met me outside Maya's rehabilitation center. He held 2 cups. You keep accidentally buying extra coffee. It's a medical condition. Have you considered treatment? No. We walked toward the entrance. He glanced at me. I heard the video confirmed your statement. Yes. How do you feel? Like I want everyone to stop asking how I feel. Noted. 3 steps later he said, what do you want for dinner? I laughed. He smiled. Then his gaze drifted toward the rehabilitation center. My sister watched part of the footage. I stopped. Why? She asked her lawyer. And she remembers less than she thought. That happens. She remembers the gun. Yes. She remembers Evan. I waited. She remembers hearing you yell at him not to shoot. My throat tightened. I had not remembered whether Maya could hear me. She asked why he fired anyway. I don't know. Julian studied my face. You keep saying that. Because I don't? You knew him for 6 years. Yes. That doesn't mean you know. Why, no. He looked away. I could tell he did not like the answer. Neither did I. But that was another thing my first life taught me. Knowing someone intimately did not make you the owner of their motives. Sometimes the person who hurt you could explain exactly why. Sometimes they could not. Sometimes they gave you 5 different reasons over 5 years. At some point, explanation became another room you could spend your life trapped inside. We entered the rehab center. Maya was trying to pick up a wooden block with her right hand. It slipped, she swore. The occupational therapist corrected her posture. She tried again. It slipped again. Maya slammed her left hand against the table. I hate this. Julian took a step toward her. I caught his sleeve. He looked at me. Wait. Maya tried again. The 3rd time she held the block for 2 seconds, then 3. Her eyes filled. She put it down carefully. Julian's shoulders loosened. He glanced at my hand still on his sleeve. I released him. Sorry. Don't be. Something passed between us, not romance yet recognition, the understanding that sometimes helping meant resisting the urge to remove another person's struggle. That evening Rebecca called. Evan's been placed on formal administrative leave pending the investigation. I closed my apartment door behind me. Because of the shooting, partly, and the discrepancy between his written account and the video is now being treated separately. I leaned against the door. What happens? Investigation. That's all. That is quite a lot, Mara. I smiled faintly. I know. His attorney may argue memory distortion after a critical incident. Could that be true? Yes. The answer bothered me because it was reasonable. Then Rebecca continued, but your text messages complicate that. I looked at my phone. Remember how fast everything happened? We need to talk before this gets out of control. They asked whether you made contact with me, not a confession, not yet, but a pattern, Rebecca said. Truth usually arrives as accumulation, not revelation. After we hung up, someone knocked. I froze, then looked through the peephole. Evan. For several seconds I stood silently behind the door. He knocked again. Mara. I did not open it. I know you're in there. I called Rebecca first, then building security. Evan must have heard me speaking. His voice changed. I'm not here to scare you. I believed him. That was the tragedy. I did not think Evan wanted to hurt me. He wanted me to help him avoid being hurt. For years I had mistaken the difference for safety. Mara, please. I stood with my forehead against the door. I lost my badge today. His voice broke. Not permanently, but they took everything, my weapon, my credentials. I closed my eyes. I don't know who I am without this. There it was, the frightened man beneath the lie. I could almost see him at 27, sitting across from me on our first date, telling me he wanted a life that meant something. I almost opened the door. Instead I said, then. This is the time to find out. Silence. Mara. I'm sorry. For what? For what happened? Then help me. I stepped away from the door. That isn't the same thing. Security arrived. Evan left without forcing the issue. I watched him walk across the parking lot from my upstairs window. He looked smaller than I remembered, human, terrified, still responsible. Those things could exist together. The story leaked in the 5th week. A local news site published the headline first. OFF duties in Aurelia. Officers account questioned in hostage shooting. By noon, television trucks were outside police headquarters. By 3, my name appeared online. By 5, somebody found the hospital where I worked. Administration moved me off the public unit schedule for several days. Not as punishment, for safety. It still felt like being erased. The messages arrived from strangers: cop, killer, girlfriend, badge chaser, liar, hero, whistleblower, victim, bitch. People who had never met me rearranged my identity according to whichever version of the story made them angriest. Tessa confiscated my phone during lunch. You're done. I need it. You need food. You're obsessed with feeding me. Because starvation is one of the least original ways to have a breakdown. I ate half a sandwich. She returned the phone only after I promised not to search my own name. That night Julian called. Someone posted your address. I know. Where are you? My apartment. No. I almost smiled. No. You should stay somewhere else. Julian. I can book a hotel. I have security downstairs. That guy is 70. He's 62. Excellent, basically special forces. I laughed, then stopped. You don't have to manage me. Silence. I know. Do you? Another pause. I'm learning. That answer softened me more than insistence would have. I'm staying with Tessa tonight. Good. You almost sounded normal. Don't spread it around. 3 days later I met Julian for dinner. It was not a date, we both said that, which meant, in hindsight, that both of us had considered whether it was. Maya had begun outpatient rehabilitation and ordered us to go discuss boring adult things somewhere. I can't hear you. We chose a quiet Thai restaurant. Julian wore one of the blue shirts. Number 7, I asked. He looked down. 4, you number them? No, that would be insane. Yet you answered immediately. He sighed. You're difficult. So I've been told. His smile faded slowly. By Evan. The question changed the temperature of the table. Sometimes. Julian looked uncomfortable. Sorry. It's okay. No, I said I wouldn't turn every conversation into him. You didn't. I'm trying not to. I picked at my rice. Why? Because you're more than the worst thing your boyfriend did. Ex-boyfriend. His eyes lifted. Right? Something quiet shifted between us. I asked him about engineering. He told me about retrofitting older buildings against earthquakes. You spend your life trying to predict how things fail. Basically. That explains a lot. He pointed his fork at me. Nurses are not permitted to psychoanalyze. We're permitted to do almost anything if the physician isn't watching. He laughed. Then he told me about Maya at 19, after their parents died in a boating accident. I decided I had to become both her brother and every adult she'd lost. How did she take that? She moved out. At 19? 20. Impressive restraint. She came back 6 months later because her roommate kept stealing yogurt. Family restored by dairy. Essentially. His eyes softened. I kept thinking if I handled every bill, every decision, every problem, nothing bad would happen again. And then, Maya informed me that my anxiety was not a legally binding form of guardianship. That sounds like her. It does. He looked at me. What about you? What about me? Why did you stay with Evan 6 years? The question was not accusatory. That made it harder, because for most of them I was happy. Julian seemed surprised. You expected another answer. I don't know. He wasn't cruel every day. I didn't think he was. He wasn't cruel most days. I folded my napkin. He was thoughtful, funny. He took care of me when I had pneumonia. He knew my coffee order. He called my mother on her birthday. My voice tightened. That's the part nobody wants to understand about betrayal. If the whole relationship had been terrible, leaving would have been easy. Julian watched me. Do you still love him? I could have lied. No. But the truth was Messier. I love someone he used to be. Julian's expression changed, not jealousy, sadness. That sounds painful. It is. After dinner we walked 2 blocks toward my car. A television van turned onto the street. I stiffened automatically. Julian noticed. You want me to walk behind you? I looked at him. Why? So photographs don't make this into something it isn't. The thoughtfulness of that hurt in a completely different way. Yes. He moved half a step back. We reached my car without cameras. I turned. Thank you for walking. For asking. His gaze held mine. I suddenly became aware of everything, the space between us, the sound of traffic, his hands loose at his sides, my own heartbeat. He looked away first. Good night, Mara. Good night. The next morning, Evan was waiting outside Rebecca's office. Not for me, for his attorney. We saw each other across the lobby. He looked exhausted. He had lost weight. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then he crossed toward me. Rebecca's receptionist stood. It's okay. I said. Evan stopped several feet away. I'm not supposed to contact you. No. I know. So don't. His mouth tightened. I saw the news. So did everyone. They're making me sound like I shot her and invented the whole thing. You did shoot her. His face flinched. And you said I touched you. You were there? Yes. You were yelling. Yes. I thought? No. He stopped. I lowered my voice. You don't get to turn your fear into my action. He stared at me. I loved you. My chest hurt. No. I would have done anything for you. There it was, the phrase people use when they want sacrifice to sound reciprocal. I asked, would you have done this? What? If I made a mistake at the hospital and hurt someone, would you confess to something you didn't do so I could keep my license? He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. I smiled sadly. That's what I thought. His face hardened. You're enjoying this. The accusation shocked me. What? Watching me lose everything? No. You always hated how much the job mattered. That isn't true. You wanted more time. You hated Claire. You hated the department. I hated being second to all of it sometimes. Exactly. He stepped closer. This is revenge. For the first time anger came cleanly. No. I looked directly at him. Revenge would be me lying about you. He went still. I'm just not lying for you. His attorney came into the lobby. Evan stepped back. Before leaving, he said, You destroyed my life. I watched him walk away. In my first life, that sentence would have sent me running after him. This time I understood something I should have learned long ago. Consequences often feel like destruction when you have spent your life believing someone else will absorb them first. Claire found me in the hospital parking garage. I was halfway to my car when she stepped from beside a concrete pillar. My first instinct was absurdly physical. 7 years of remembered betrayal tightened every muscle in my body. She looked almost exactly as she had the last time I saw her in my first life, blonde hair pulled back, athletic build, dark police sweatshirt, but she was younger now and she was not wearing Evan's ring, not yet. Mara, Claire. I'm not supposed to talk to you about the case. Then this should be short. Her jaw tightened. You blocked Evan? Yes. He's falling apart. That isn't something I can fix. You were together 6 years. I remember. She glanced around the garage. I'm not asking you to lie. I almost laughed. Good. I'm asking whether you understand what happens if they decide his report was intentionally false. Yes. He loses his career. Yes. Possibly his certification. Yes. Criminal charges. Yes. Claire stared at me. You sound cold. I'm tired. That isn't the same thing. No. I stepped closer. You want me to sound devastated enough that you can believe I'm still a good person. Her face changed. That's not fair. Probably not. She folded her arms. He made one bad Decision in the worst second of his life. No. What? He made one decision when he fired. I held her gaze. He made another when he wrote my name into his report. Claire looked away. That report was preliminary. He has corrected it. No answer, has he? No. Then stop calling it one decision. She flinched for the first time. She did not look like the woman who had taken my boyfriend. She looked like someone standing too close to a collapsing wall. He's been struggling, she said. With? What? After Marcus Bell got killed. I remembered the name. Evan's former training officer had died in a traffic stop 18 months before the shooting. Evan rarely discussed it. He started second-guessing himself. Claire continued. Then overcorrecting. Tactical training got worse. Was he unsafe? No. Her answer came too quickly. She rubbed her forehead. He was scared of freezing. And sometimes people who are scared of freezing move too fast. The statement chilled me. Did the department know? There was nothing official to know. He passed qualifications. Then why tell me? Claire's eyes met mine. Because I don't think you understand how terrified he is. I almost felt sorry for her. I understand better than you think. She looked toward my car. He called me after the shooting. I know. Her head turned sharply. How? He texted me that you said the department was treating him like he fired recklessly. Claire swallowed. He needed someone who understood. A memory struck so hard I almost tasted metal. Claire understands what this job does to people. You always understand him, don't you? She frowned. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Not yet. Claire, did he tell you I touched him? Yes. When? Her face went still. I saw the answer before she gave it. After. How long after? I don't know. You know? Maybe 20 minutes. Before he spoke to investigators. She said nothing. There it was, not proof of a crime but another piece. What exactly did he say? You should ask the investigators. I will. I started walking. Claire spoke behind me. Mara. I stopped. He loves you. The cruelty of that sentence was almost accidental. I turned. I know. Claire looked confused. You say that like it doesn't matter. It matters. My voice softened. That's why this hurts. I walked away. Julian called that evening. I told him most of it, not the memories, not what Claire had been to Evan in my first life, just the conversation. She approached you at work. Parking garage. That's inappropriate. She wasn't threatening me. That's a low standard. You sound like Rebecca. She's smart. She charges $400 an hour. I'm cheaper. You're much more annoying. There was silence, then Julian said, Maya wants pizza. Medical emergency. Apparently. I'm off tomorrow. A pause. Come over. The invitation felt larger than the words. To Maya's. My place. She's staying with me until she can manage stairs better. I hesitated. Julian immediately added, You don't have to. I know. That was why I went. His house was older than I expected, small backyard, books everywhere. A dining table covered in Maya's therapy equipment. Maya sat on the couch in sweatpants and insulted Julian's pizza ordering abilities for 12 straight minutes. It was ordinary, painfully ordinary. I had forgotten how much I wanted ordinary. After Maya went to bed, Julian and I stood in the kitchen loading dishes. You don't have to help, he said. I'm a guest. It's legally required. Not in California. You're an engineer, not a lawyer. Exactly. He dried a plate. I watched his hands, then hated myself for noticing. Mara? What? You went somewhere. I looked up. Sorry. You do that sometimes. Everyone does. Probably. He set the plate down. Can I ask something selfish? Depends. Are you here because you feel guilty about Maya? The question landed harder than Claire's confrontation. At first. Yes. And now? I looked toward the dark hallway. I like her. She likes you. She has terrible judgment. That runs in the family. Our eyes met. Neither of us looked away. Julian took one slow breath. I don't want to be another complicated thing in your life. You already are. His mouth moved slightly. That wasn't romantic. I know. Good. I stepped closer without deciding to. Maybe he did too. There was still room between us. He waited. That mattered. So I closed it. The kiss was quiet. No urgency, no hands pulling, just warmth. Then I stepped back, my eyes filled before I could stop them. Julian's expression changed immediately. I'm sorry. No? Mara? You didn't do anything. I laughed once, embarrassed. I forgot it could feel like that. Like what? Like nobody was asking me for something. He stood very still, then he said, "I'm going to say something deeply unromantic. Please, you should go home." I laughed through the tears. "That is unromantic. You're exhausted, I'm confused, my sister is 20 feet away and capable of weaponizing this forever." From the hallway Maya called, "Already heard everything." Julian closed his eyes. I laughed so hard I had to sit down for 5 minutes. My life was ridiculous instead of tragic. It was one of the best nights I could remember. 2 days later, Detective Navarro called. She wanted another interview. This time she asked one question that changed the direction of the case. What was Officer Cross's relationship with Officer Claire Maddox? I looked at her. "What do you mean?" Navarro folded her hands. "What do you know?" My heartbeat slowed. "And what am I assuming?" Her eyes sharpened slightly. "Exactly. I thought about 7 years, a hotel receipt, a ring, a woman who understood him." Then I answered carefully, "In this life, I only know what I can prove." Navarro looked puzzled. I corrected myself. "In this situation." Then I said, "I know they were close." "How close?" "I think you should ask Claire." Navarro nodded. We did. For the first time I saw something in her expression, not triumph, concern, and I knew Claire had left something out. Julian and I had our first real fight because he wanted me to hate Evan more than I did. He would deny that description. He said he wanted accountability. He said Maya deserved every relevant fact. He said people had spent generations protecting officers by turning misconduct into private tragedy. Some of that was true. The problem was that righteous arguments can still hide personal anger. We were walking along the marina when it happened. Maya had undergone a second surgery 3 days earlier. Her hand function remained uncertain. Julian had slept badly. I had testified for nearly 4 hours in a civil discovery interview. Neither of us was at our best. Rebecca says they'll probably ask about Evan and Claire. I said, "Good." I stopped. "Why good?" "Because if he was emotionally involved with another officer who influenced what happened afterward, it matters." "You don't know that she influenced his report. She approached you. That doesn't prove anything. She pressured you. She asked me to consider his career. That's pressure." "Yes." He looked toward the water. "Why are you defending her?" "I'm not." "It sounds like it." "I'm being accurate. Maya has to relearn how to use her hand." "I know." "Then why do you keep worrying about being fair to them?" "That hurt." "Because fairness doesn't become optional when someone hurts you." Julian shook his head. "Sometimes I think you're still protecting him." My entire body went cold. He saw it. "Mara?" "No. I didn't mean." "Yes, you did. I meant emotionally." "And you think that gives you the right to decide what my truth should sound like?" "No. You want me furious because fury would make this easier for you." His expression hardened. "That's unfair." "Probably." I laughed without humor. "I seem to be saying that a lot lately." We stood facing each other while sailboat rigging clicked in the wind. Julian said, "My sister almost died." "Yes." "And he lied." "Yes." "And his partner tried to protect him." "Maybe." That. "What? Why can't you just say it?" "Because I don't know it yet." His voice rose. "Jesus, Mara." "No." I stepped closer. "You do not get to turn me into your evidence." He went silent. I continued more quietly. "Evan did that already." Regret crossed Julian's face. I hated that I had hurt him. I hated more that part of me wanted to apologize immediately and make him comfortable. That was the old reflex. Fix the room, fix the man, pay the emotional bill before anyone asked. I put my hands in my coat pockets. "I'm going home. Mara, I need space." He nodded. That helped. He did not follow. 3 days passed. He texted only once. "I was wrong. You don't owe me anger. I'm sorry." I did not respond immediately, not because I wanted to punish him, because I wanted to learn what it felt like to receive an apology without rushing to relieve the person who gave it. On the 4th day I wrote, "Thank you. I'm still mad." His reply came a minute later. "Reasonable." I smiled. The case moved forward. Without caring about our emotional timing, Detective Navarro interviewed Claire again. Then again, Evan's attorney filed objections to certain administrative questions. The district attorney's office requested additional evidence. The union appointed separate counsel. Everything took longer than television had taught people to expect. Months passed. Maya learned to hold a spoon, then a pen, then a small lump of clay. She could not center it on the wheel. The first time she tried, the clay collapsed. Sideways, she stared at it, then burst into tears. I sat on the floor beside her. "I hate everyone who says I'm lucky." "I know. I am lucky." "I know. That makes me hate them more." "Reasonable." She wiped her face. "You've been hanging around Julian too much." "Unfortunately." She looked at me. "You two fighting?" "Yes. He's an idiot." "Sometimes." He thinks because he can calculate load distribution, emotions are also a structural problem. That sounds accurate. Do you love him? The question came so casually that I almost dropped the towel in my hand. No. Maya raised an eyebrow. Do you want to? I sat back. That's a different question. Coward. You were literally held hostage and you're still this annoying. Trauma didn't improve my personality. That evening, Claire called Rebecca, not me. Rebecca called me afterward. Claire Maddox asked to speak with the investigative team again. Why? She apparently has material she did not disclose before. My stomach tightened. What material? A voicemail. I sat down. From Evan? Yes. When? The night of the shooting. I could hear Rebecca turning a page. Approximately 37 minutes after the incident. What does he say? I haven't heard it, the investigators have. Rebecca. She sighed. According to what I was told, Evan says something along the lines of believing you will support the physical contact explanation. My fingers tightened around the phone. Support. There's more. What? He sounds angry because you have apparently refused. My throat went dry. The sequence mattered. If he told Claire that he expected me to say I touched him after I had already denied it, then later put that claim into his report. Intent, not confused memory, not trauma, a decision. Why did Claire keep it? I don't know. Can she get charged? Potentially, depending on what she did, what she was required to disclose, and when. Don't jump ahead. What happens now? Investigators investigate. I laughed. Weakly. Navarro would like that answer. She sounds sensible. After we hung up, I drove to Julian's house. I did not call first. He opened the door in sweatpants and an old college shirt. Mara, I'm still mad at you. I know. Claire had a voicemail. His face changed. What? I told him. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he looked like he wanted to say something violent. He did not. Instead, he asked, "What do you need?" The question broke something open. Not because it was extraordinary, because no one had asked me that during my first life. Everyone asked what I would do, what I would say, whose side I was on, what sacrifice I would make. Nobody asked what I needed. I don't know. Julian opened the door wider. That's allowed. I stepped inside. He did not touch me, not until I reached for his hand. Then he held it, nothing more, and standing there. I understood the difference between someone helping you carry pain and someone asking you to carry theirs. I eventually heard the voicemail, not directly. Rebecca read the relevant transcript to me after investigators disclosed it through the appropriate process. Evan had called Claire 37 minutes after the shooting. His voice was strained, disorganized. He said I was refusing to remember it right. He said I had been close enough to touch him. Then came the sentence that ended every plausible argument about innocent memory distortion. She knows what I need her to say. I sat in Rebecca's office staring at the wall. She waited. That's it. I asked. That's enough for today. No. Mara, read the rest. Rebecca watched me carefully, then continued. Evan told Claire that if I said I had grabbed his arm, everyone can live with this. Everyone. Maya was in surgery. I was sitting in bloodstained jeans. Evan was already deciding what version everyone could live with. I thought I would feel rage. Instead, I felt grief so old it seemed to belong to my first body. In that other life, he had looked into my eyes and asked me to say the same thing. I had believed the idea came from panic in the stairwell. Now I knew he had rehearsed it first, maybe with Claire, maybe alone. It hardly mattered. He had needed a story. I had been convenient. The district attorney's office notified Evan's attorney 2 weeks later that prosecutors were reviewing potential charges relating to the report and subsequent conduct. He surrendered for booking rather than being arrested publicly. Rebecca explained that this was common in nonviolent cases where a represented defendant posed no flight risk. He was released pending proceedings. The internet hated that. The internet wanted handcuffs. The internet wanted humiliation. I wanted sleep. Maya wanted to make a bowl. Julian wanted justice and was slowly learning that justice rarely arrived looking satisfying. One evening he found me in Maya's studio, watching her fight with the pottery wheel. Her injured hand could stabilize the clay for several seconds now. Not enough for the old technique, so she was learning another. It was ugly, uneven, functional. She glared at the bowl. It looks drunk. Julian leaned against the wall. I like it. You have no artistic standards. I'm an engineer. Exactly. Maya left to wash her hands. Julian came closer. How are you? I hate that question. I know. Ask anyway. How are you? I looked at the wheel. Sad. For him. Yes. Julian nodded. I turned toward him. You're not angry. I'm trying to be less stupid. That sounds difficult. Extremely. I smiled, then the smile disappeared. He was good to me once. I believe you. He might even think he loved me when he asked me to lie. I believe that too. That makes it worse. Julian leaned against the work table. My parents loved each other. I waited. My father still got on a boat after the weather advisory. His expression tightened. My mother still went with him because she trusted him. I had never heard this part. I spent years trying to decide whose fault that was. Did you? No. He looked toward the doorway where Maya had disappeared. I eventually realized blame wasn't going to resurrect anybody. He met my eyes. But pretending the decision didn't matter wouldn't resurrect them either. I swallowed. You always have an engineering metaphor ready. That wasn't engineering. It sounded suspiciously organized. He smiled, then asked, "Can I kiss you?" The question felt almost formal. Yes. This kiss was different, still gentle, but deliberate. My hands rested against his chest. His moved to my waist and stopped there. When we separated, I did not cry. Progress. I'm still complicated. I warned. Terrible news. I mean it. So do I. You might spend years hearing me say I don't know how I feel about Evan, then say it. What if you get tired? I might. The honesty startled me. Julian continued. If I do, we talk about it. No promises forever. I barely promised lunch before checking my calendar. I laughed. He touched my cheek. I'm not asking you to become uncomplicated. That night I slept without dreaming about the shooting. The next afternoon, Evan requested a meeting through our attorneys. Rebecca advised against it. There is no benefit to you. Did he say why? He wants to explain. I almost laughed. People always wanted to explain after evidence made denial impossible. No? Rebecca nodded. I agree. 3 weeks later, Evan changed his official position. He amended parts of his account. He no longer claimed direct physical contact with me. Instead, he said he had experienced a subjective sensation of being crowded during the shooting. The language belonged to lawyers, the consequences belonged to him. Detective Navarro called me in one final time. She asked whether Evan had ever previously requested that I lie for him. No. Whether I knew of prior false reports. No. Whether I had evidence that he intended Maya to be hurt. No. Then she asked the familiar question, what do you know? That he shot Maya. What else? That I didn't touch him. What else? That afterward he wanted me to say I did. What are you assuming? I thought carefully. That everything bad about him must have been there all along. Navarro looked at me for a moment, then nodded. People like simple stories. I used to. They're easier to prosecute too. I laughed. She switched off the recorder. Outside, Julian waited near the elevator. He had not come because I needed protection. He came because afterward we were taking Maya to dinner. An ordinary plan, the kind I had begun to treasure. As we walked out, Rebecca called. The district attorney had made a decision regarding the shooting itself. No charge would be filed for the discharge of the weapon. The evidence established that Derek was armed and that the situation involved an immediate threat. Investigators criticized Evan's positioning and timing, but prosecutors did not believe they could prove a criminal use of force offense beyond a reasonable doubt. I stopped walking. Julian saw my face. What? I told him, his jaw clenched. That's it. No, Rebecca was still speaking. The report investigation is separate. I repeated it for Julian. He looked away. For a second I expected anger. Instead he said, okay. Okay. No. He exhaled. Not okay. Then looked at me. But true. The words mattered. A few days later, prosecutors formally charged Evan over the false report and his effort to shift responsibility, and suddenly the case became what it had always really been about. Not whether a frightened officer could make a terrible decision in less than a second, but what kind of man he chose to become. In the minutes afterward, Claire asked to meet me 6 months after the shooting. Rebecca approved only after confirming the criminal investigators had completed the relevant interviews. We met in a coffee shop nowhere near the police department. Claire wore civilian clothes. I had rarely seen her without a uniform. She looked younger and more tired. She sat across from me without touching her coffee. I'm suspended. I said nothing. Failure to disclose evidence promptly. Conduct investigation is still open. I'm sorry. She laughed once. No, you're not. I'm sorry you made a decision that put you here. Her eyes lifted. That sounds like something a therapist says. I'm a nurse. Worse. Silence. Then she said, I kept the voicemail because I thought he was panicking. He was. I thought if I handed it over immediately, I'd be helping destroy him over something he didn't mean. He meant enough to say it. I know that now. I studied her. Why did you really ask me here? Claire looked at the window. There's something investigators know that you don't. My stomach tightened. About the case. About Evan. I already knew. Somewhere inside me 7 years of memory stood up. Claire rubbed her thumb against the paper cup. 2 weeks before the shooting, Evan and I kissed. There it was, smaller than the betrayal I remembered earlier, still real. I waited for pain. It came, but it did not destroy me. Claire continued quickly. We had drinks. After training we'd both had too much. He was upset about tactical evaluations. I was upset about my divorce. You kissed? Yes. More? No. In my first life I would not have believed her. In this one I did, not because I trusted Claire, because she had no reason to minimize something investigators could verify through messages. We stopped, she said. We agreed it was a mistake. Did you? Yes. Emotionally. She looked down. No. That hurt more. He called you first after the shooting. Yes. He told you he needed me to say I touched him. Yes. And you still came to the garage to ask me to understand him. Claire's eyes filled. Yes. Why? Because I loved him. The answer silenced me, not because it excused anything, because it made the triangle suddenly human. 3 frightened adults, 2 women who had both mistaken understanding Evan for a special form of intimacy, 1 man who needed to be understood so badly that he had stopped asking what understanding cost other people. Claire whispered, I hated you. I know. You seemed like everything in his life that was normal. He talked about your house plans, your mother, the dog you wanted. My throat tightened. I wanted a golden retriever. He told me. I almost laughed. Claire wiped her face. I thought he stayed with you because you were safe. And you were what? The person who understood. There it was, the old cruelty, but hearing it from her made it smaller, not harmless, smaller. You understand something now. I asked. Claire nodded. That being needed isn't the same as being loved. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I thought about my first life. Claire had eventually gotten Evan. I had imagined that as her victory. Perhaps it had not been. Perhaps she had inherited the same job I once performed. Keep him whole. Protect the version of himself he preferred. Absorb the fear. Call it intimacy. I don't forgive you, I said. Claire nodded. I know. I might someday. She looked surprised. That wouldn't mean what you did was okay. I know. And I'm not responsible for making you feel better. I know. This time when she said it, I believed her. I left first. Julian waited outside. He had offered not to come. I had asked him to. When he saw my face, he opened his arms. I stepped into them. For several minutes I said nothing. Then I told him everything Claire had confessed, not the first life. That remained the one truth I could never explain without sounding insane. But I told him what the betrayal meant. I think what scares me isn't that someone will cheat on me. Julian waited. It's that I'll see it happening and convince myself I can earn my way back into being chosen. His arms tightened slightly. I can't promise never to hurt you, I know. I can promise not to ask you to disappear so I don't have to feel guilty. My eyes closed. That's strangely romantic. I've been practicing. We went to Maya's studio. She had made 6 crooked bowls. The 7th was almost symmetrical. Julian picked it up. Maya slapped his hand. It's wet, right? You've been around architecture too. Long. You think every object wants to become a building. He looked offended. I laughed, and in that bright, messy studio with clay on the floor and grief still unfinished inside all of us, I felt something I had not expected from a second life, not victory, not revenge, possibility. Evan entered a plea 13 months after the shooting. By then, public attention had faded. Another scandal had replaced ours. Another headline. Another set of strangers arguing online about facts they only partially understood. Real life continued more slowly. Evan's case involved negotiations between prosecutors and defense attorneys, evidentiary disputes, employment proceedings and arguments about intent. The eventual agreement was narrower than many people wanted. He accepted criminal responsibility for knowingly making a materially false statement in his police report, and for conduct related to the attempted shifting of responsibility. The shooting itself was not charged. Maya hated that distinction. Then she accepted that hating it did not make it legally false. I want one universe where everything feels fair, she told me. I tried another universe. She looked at me. What? Nothing. You're weird. I know. Evan resigned from the department before the employment process concluded. His state certification status remained subject to separate review. He would not simply move to another town and put on another badge the following Monday. His law enforcement career, for practical purposes, was over. Claire received a lengthy suspension and ultimately resigned months later. She enrolled in a graduate program in emergency management. Maya said that sounded boring. Claire told her boring was currently attractive. They were not friends, but eventually they became capable of occupying the same room. That counted for something. The sentencing hearing took place on a gray morning. I attended because Rebecca said I could choose, not because anyone needed me. That distinction mattered. Julian sat beside Maya. I sat beside him when Evan entered. I barely recognized him, not physically, emotionally. For years, both before and after my rebirth, I had seen him through the frame of his badge, competent, protective, authoritative. Now he wore a plain dark suit. He looked like what he had always been underneath everything, a man. His attorney spoke, the prosecutor spoke, the judge spoke about public trust and the seriousness of an officer creating a false account in an investigation. Evan was given an opportunity to address the court. He stood for several seconds. He could not begin. Then he looked toward Maya. "I'm sorry." Maya's face did not change. "I know that isn't enough." His hand shook. "I have spent more than a year trying to identify the exact second I ruined my life." The room remained still. "I thought it was when I pulled the trigger." He swallowed. "It wasn't." My eyes filled. "It was afterward, when I realized I might lose everything I had worked for, and decided someone who loved me should help me avoid that." He looked at me. I wanted to look away. I did not. Mara did not touch me. The words arrived 13 months too late. They still mattered. I knew she didn't. A quiet sound came from somewhere behind us. Evan continued. "I was afraid. I was ashamed. I believed one mistake would erase every good thing I had ever done." He took a breath. "So I made a choice that erased my integrity instead." Julian's hand rested near mine, not holding it, available. I turned my palm upward. He took it. Evan looked back toward the judge. "I don't expect forgiveness." His voice broke. "But I accept responsibility." The sentence was imperfect, so was he. The court imposed the negotiated sentence, custody that could be served in county jail, followed by supervised release and the consequences attached to his conviction. Not decades, not dramatic destruction, enough to be real, enough to follow him outside the courthouse. Reporters shouted questions. Maya stopped. Julian immediately looked at her. She lifted her chin. "I'm saying one thing." He started to protest. She gave him a look. He stopped. "Progress." Maya faced the cameras. "What happened to me was not only one bullet." The microphone shifted toward her. "It was the decision afterward to make the truth negotiable." She paused. "I don't need Officer Cross to suffer forever." I saw several reporters react. I needed him to stop asking other people to suffer for him. Then she walked away. No dramatic smile, no triumph. She was tired. In the parking garage she leaned against the car. "My arm hurts." Julian opened the door. "I told you we should have brought the sling." "I hate the sling." "You hate pain." "I contain multitudes." I laughed. Julian helped her into the passenger seat. Then he looked at me. "You okay?" I considered lying. "Old habits." "No." He nodded. "Me neither." That was enough. That evening Rebecca forwarded a message from Evan's attorney. Evan had one request: someday, after the criminal case was finished and all legal restrictions allowed it, he wanted to speak to me once. No demand, no explanation attached, just a request. I deleted the message, then restored it from the trash. Not because I intended to say yes, because this time I wanted my decisions to come from choice rather than reflex. I left it unanswered for 17 months. The strangest part of surviving a disaster is how insulting ordinary life can feel afterward. Bills still arrive. Milk expires, cars need oil changes, people complain about meetings, someone steals your yogurt from the staff refrigerator. For months, I kept waiting for my life to announce what came next. It never did, so I started choosing small things. I applied for a clinical education position at the hospital. I had wanted it for years. In my first life, my disciplinary history had made the opportunity impossible. This time my record was clean. My supervisor asked why I wanted to move from bedside ICU care. "Because I'm good in emergencies," I said. She waited, and I smiled. "I'd like to learn whether I'm good when nobody is dying." I got the job. Tessa celebrated by buying me a terrible balloon shaped like a kidney. Maya's hand improved, not completely. She regained enough grip strength to return to teaching with modifications. She stopped trying to recreate the exact technique she had used before. Instead, she changed how she braced her arm. Her pottery changed too, less symmetrical, more textured. People started buying it. She hated that. They think trauma makes the bowls profound. Does it? No, glaze makes them profound. Julian's firm completed a seismic rehabilitation project that had consumed 3 years of his life. On the night it opened, we stood on the roof of the renovated building looking over San Aurelia. "You're staring at the columns," I said. "I'm appreciating." "You're checking." "Appreciating." You think the building will collapse because you left it alone for 10 minutes. That is insulting. Accurate. He smiled. We had been together almost a year, not dramatically. He did not propose beneath fireworks. I did not move into his house after a grand declaration. I kept my apartment. He kept his blue shirts. We learned how to disagree. That became strangely important to me. The first time I told him I wanted to spend Thanksgiving with my mother instead of Maya. I waited for disappointment. He said, okay. That's it. What? You're not upset. I'll miss you. Oh, he frowned. Were we supposed to fight? No. Then this seems efficient. I kissed him. Months later we had a much worse argument about his habit of solving my problems before I asked. He apologized, then did it again. 2 weeks later I yelled. He got defensive. I slept at my apartment. The next morning he texted, I am apparently still unbearable after 3 years. Maya's estimate was optimistic. I laughed before I wanted to. We kept trying. That was love too, not perfection. Revision. Claire sent Maya a card on the anniversary of the shooting. No apology speech, just, I remembered the date. I hope today is gentle. Maya did not respond. She kept the card. Evan completed his custody sentence. I heard through Rebecca that he had begun working with an HVAC contractor owned by a cousin for months. That information lives somewhere in the background of my mind. I imagined him learning an ordinary trade, showing up without a badge, being someone nobody automatically obeyed. Part of me felt satisfied. I disliked that part. Another part felt sad. I disliked that too. Eventually I stopped grading my emotions. Feelings were not verdicts. Actions were. One evening Julian and I ate takeout on my apartment floor because my new dining table had arrived without half the screws. He stared at the instruction sheet. This is offensive. You design buildings. Exactly. It's a table. It lacks structural integrity. It lacks 4 screws. Same issue. I handed him noodles. He took the container, then said, Rebecca emailed you. I looked toward my laptop. You read it? No notification. I opened the message. Evan's attorney was closing his file. One remaining communication had been attached, a letter from Evan. I did not open it. Julian watched me. You want me to leave? No. You want me to stay? Yes. He stayed. I opened the letter. It was short. Evan did not ask me to forgive him. He did not explain the shooting again. He wrote that he had spent the last 2 years understanding how often he had confused being loved with being protected from consequences. He admitted he had resented me for telling the truth because resentment felt easier than shame. Then he wrote, there is something I owe you that cannot be written in a legal statement. If you never want to hear it, I understand, but if you ever do, I will come when you choose, leave when you ask, and expect nothing. I read the line twice. Julian said nothing. What do you think? I asked. He shook his head. Dangerous question. Why? Because you might mistake my preference for permission. I stared at him. That was the entire difference. Evan had always needed my choice to protect him. Julian was careful not to let his choice replace mine. I think I want to see him. Julian's jaw tightened. They're human, not perfectly secure, not saintly. You don't like that? No? Are you angry? A little? Scared? He considered. Yes. Of what? That you'll realize some part of you still belongs with him. I moved closer. Thank you for saying that. I hated saying it. I know. He looked at the broken table. Do you? Yes. I took his hand. I don't want Evan back. Julian nodded. But I think I left part of myself in that hospital stairwell. His fingers tightened around mine. And, I'd like to pick it up. Julian looked at me for a long moment, then he said, okay. A week later I replied, 1 meeting, public place, no lawyers, no cameras, no future obligation. Evan answered 4 hours later, thank you, nothing more. We met on a Tuesday morning. The same day of the week I had died. I noticed that only when I reached the coffee shop. For a moment I almost left. Then I remembered something. This was not my first life, and even if it had been, I was no longer required to repeat it. I opened the door. Evan was already seated. He stood when he saw me. For a second, time folded. The man across from me contained every version I remembered. 27-year-old Evan teaching me to drive his ridiculous manual transmission Jeep. 33-year-old Evan in the hospital stairwell asking me to lie. 36-year-old Evan telling me Claire understood him better. The defendant in court, the man in front of me now. He looked older than 35, so did I. Probably. Hi, he said. Hi. We sat. There was no dramatic music, no rain. A barista dropped a metal pitcher behind the counter. Someone laughed near the door. Ordinary life refused to respect emotional symbolism. Evan looked at his coffee. Thank you for coming. I almost didn't. I know. I waited. He took a breath. I practiced this. That sounds like you. A faint smile appeared, then disappeared. I'm trying not to. Not to what? Control the conversation. I nodded. Another silence. Finally he said, I'm sorry. I had heard those words from him before in court, through lawyers, in statements. This was different because neither of us could gain anything now. His conviction existed, his career was gone, my life had moved forward, there was nothing left to bargain with. I know, I said. He looked at me. I used to hate when you said that. I remember. It sounded like you were refusing to help me feel better. I was. He laughed once. Fair. He looked older when he smiled. I thought about what you asked me. What? If I would have taken the blame if you hurt someone at the hospital. I remembered the lobby. I told myself yes. Would you? No. The honesty hurt less than expected. I would have hired you, the best lawyer I could afford. I would have sat beside you. I would have told everyone you were a good nurse who made a terrible mistake. He swallowed. But I wouldn't have ruined my life to change what you did. I looked through the window. People crossed the street outside. That's what I needed you to understand. I know. I would have done it for you. His eyes filled. I know. There was no pride in that knowledge anymore, only grief. I continued. That was my problem too. His brows drew together. No? Yes. Mara, I'm not letting you split this. I'm not. I looked back at him. You lied. You put my name in your report. You tried to make me responsible for something I didn't do. He nodded. That belongs to you. Yes. But I spent years believing my willingness to disappear for you proved I loved you more deeply than other people could. His face tightened. I rewarded that. Yes. I expected it. Yes. I'm sorry. I know. This time the words felt gentler. Evan rubbed his palms together. Claire told me you know? About the kiss. He nodded. I'm sorry for that too. Did you love her? He looked surprised, then thought. Yes. Pain came, old but real. He continued. I loved you too. I believed him. That was perhaps the final thing I needed to understand. Human beings could hold contradictory truths. Evan could love me and betray me. Claire could love Evan and help him do something wrong. I could love Evan and still refuse him. Julian could love me and sometimes resent the history I carried. Maya could be grateful to be alive and furious about the life she lost. No feeling automatically transformed a person into someone good. Choices did more of that work. Are you and Claire together? I asked. No. I had not expected that. She visited once after I got out, and we realized most of what connected us was surviving the same disaster. He looked almost embarrassed. She's doing better. I heard. He nodded. I'm working HVAC. I heard that too. It's less glamorous. You always complained about air conditioning. I have developed respect. I smiled. He smiled too, and for one terrible, tender second we were us again, not lovers, not enemies, two people who had once known exactly how the other took coffee. I let the moment exist, then let it end. Evan looked down. Do you ever think about what would have happened if I hadn't lied? Every day of another lifetime? Yes. Maybe we could have survived it. Maybe. Do you think we would still be together? I considered. No. He closed his eyes briefly. Okay. That doesn't mean nothing between us was real. He looked at me. It was real. My throat tightened. We were just not who we thought we were. He nodded. I stood. He stood too. Neither of us moved toward the other. Goodbye, Evan. His eyes filled. Goodbye, Mara. I walked away. He did not follow. That mattered. Outside, the sun was bright enough that I had to close my eyes for a second. When I opened them, Julian was not waiting. I had asked him not to. Instead, there was a message on my phone. Maya burned dinner. Emergency response requested. I laughed on my way. Maya had not burned dinner. She had burned garlic bread. According to her, this was legally different. Claire's anniversary card still sat unopened. Inside a drawer, Evan existed somewhere across town, learning how to repair air conditioning systems. Rebecca had returned to cases that did not involve me. Detective Navarro probably sat across from another frightened witness asking what they knew and what they assumed. Life had continued. Maya placed a bowl in front of me. It was uneven. Blue glaze pooled heavily on one side. A thin gold line ran through a crack near the rim. You made this? No, a mysterious injured ceramicist broke into my studio. It's beautiful. It's structurally questionable. From the kitchen, Julian called. I heard that. Maya rolled her eyes. See what you've encouraged? Julian came in carrying 3 plates. He kissed my forehead. Not because the story needed romance, because he had started doing that months ago. You okay? He asked quietly. I looked at him, then at Maya, at the ugly, beautiful bowl, at a life that contained consequences nobody could undo. Yes. This time the answer was true. Later that night, Julian and I washed dishes while Maya argued with somebody on the phone about kiln temperatures. He handed me a towel. You regret going? No? Feel better? Not exactly. He nodded. That makes sense. I dried the bowl carefully. I forgave him. Julian's hand stopped beneath the running water. You did. I think so. He turned off the faucet. Does that scare you? No. I smiled. It used to. Why? Because I thought forgiveness meant returning something. To him. To the relationship, to the person. I set the bowl down, but it doesn't. Julian leaned against the counter. What does it mean? I thought about Evan, Claire, Maya, the bullet, the lie, a rain-covered intersection in another life, 9 impossible seconds returned to me. It means I don't need him to suffer anymore for me to know what he did was wrong. Julian nodded slowly. That sounds expensive. It was, he smiled. Then his face grew serious. Mara? What? I love you. He had said it before many times, still I listened, not for conditions, not for a hidden request, just the words, I love you too. He touched my cheek. Even with 12 blue shirts. 11. I bought another. Then we need couples counseling. He laughed. I kissed him. Nothing in the room was perfect. Maya's arm would never move exactly as it once had. Claire would carry the knowledge that she delayed the truth. Evan would live with a conviction and the career he destroyed. Julian would probably spend the rest of his life checking structural beams that did not need checking. I still woke some nights hearing a gunshot that had happened twice to me and only once to everyone else. A second life had not erased the first one. That was never the gift. The gift was smaller, harder, better. I had been given the same terrible moment and discovered that changing my life did not require saving everyone. I only had to stop lying about who was responsible for what. The bullet was Evan's. The wound was Maya's. The betrayal belonged to Claire and Evan. The years I once surrendered belonged to the woman I had been. The future was mine. And this time I kept it.